They say you can't smell death before it comes. They're wrong. I smelled it that night, thick, suffocating, like smoke mixed with something ancient and rotting. I stood in the center of my father's study, barefoot on Persian rugs that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime, and I watched him hold my Bible over the flame of an oil lamp. His hand didn't shake. Mine did. "This is your last chance, Amira," he said, my name sounding like poison on his tongue. "Burn it yourself, or I burn you with it. I want you to understand something. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be the girl who defied her father, who whispered prayers to a god her family would kill her for knowing. I was supposed to marry the man they chose, the man who murdered my Christian parents and took me as a trophy. I was supposed to smile, submit, and disappear into the role they carved out for me like a tomb. But 3 nights before my wedding, Jesus Christ appeared in my bedroom. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. But let me take you back to where this nightmare began, back to the golden cage I called home, back to the moment I realized that sometimes the most dangerous prison isn't made of bars. It's made of silk, perfume, and family obligation. My bedroom was 30 feet wide with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Arabian Sea. Marble floors, hand-carved furniture from Turkey, a canopy bed draped in fabric so fine it felt like water between my fingers. I had 17 abayas in my closet, each one more expensive than the last. Black silk. Embroidered with gold thread. Modest. Elegant. Suffocating. I was 19 years old, and I had everything. Except a voice. Every morning, I woke to the sound of the call to prayer echoing from the mosque 3 blocks away. The sound used to comfort me when I was younger, rhythmic, familiar, like a heartbeat. But now it sounded like a countdown. 5 times a day, reminding me that I belonged to a system that saw me as currency, not a person. My adoptive father, Rashid Al-Amir, was one of the wealthiest men in the region. Oil money. Real estate. Connections that snaked through every level of government and religious authority. When he walked into a room, men stood. When he spoke, people listened. When he smiled, which was rare, it never reached his eyes. Those eyes. Allah forgive me, I can still see them. Black. Not brown, but black, like staring into a well with no bottom. Cold. Calculating. Dead. He didn't love me. I knew that. But I didn't know why he kept me until much later. I remember the day he brought me home. I was 7 years old, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, my white dress stained with blood that wasn't mine. My real parents, Michael and Sarah, were dead. Slaughtered in their home during a targeted raid on a small Christian community on the outskirts of the city. I watched it happen through a crack in the closet door where my mother had hidden me seconds before the men broke down our front door. "Shoo, baby, don't make a sound," she had whispered, her hand trembling as she kissed my forehead one last time. "Jesus is with you. Always." Those were the last words she ever said to me. Rashid was there that night. Not as a rescuer. As a participant. But I didn't know that yet. I was too young, too traumatized, too desperate for safety. When he pulled me from the rubble and said, "You're mine now," I thought he was saving me. I thought Allah had sent him to give me a second chance. I was so wrong. For 12 years, I played the role perfectly. I learned Arabic fluently, erasing every trace of my English accent. I memorized the Quran, prayed 5 times a day, fasted during Ramadan until my stomach cramped and my vision blurred. I covered myself. I lowered my gaze. I said yes, Baba, and no, Baba, and never, ever asked why. I buried my parents' memories so deep I almost convinced myself they weren't real. That the nightmares were just nightmares. That the woman who used to sing Amazing Grace while braiding my hair was just a ghost my mind invented to torture me. But then he told me about the wedding. I was sitting in the courtyard, reading a book about Islamic jurisprudence, because that's what good daughters do, right, when Rashid's shadow fell across the page. I looked up. He stood there in his white thobe, hands clasped behind his back, his face unreadable. "You will be married in 3 weeks," he said. Not asked. Stated. My heart stopped. To whom, Baba? Khalid ibn Sarif. The book slipped from my hands. Khalid. I knew that name. Everyone did. He was Rashid's business partner, his closest ally, a man twice my age with a reputation for cruelty that made even hardened men nervous. I'd seen him once at a dinner party, tall, broad-shouldered, with a beard streaked with gray and eyes that lingered on me too long, like I was meat hanging in a market. Baba, please, It is done. His voice cut through my protest like a blade. You should be grateful. He is powerful. Wealthy. You will want for nothing. But I don't love him. The slap came so fast I didn't see it. My cheek exploded in heat and pain, and I tasted copper on my tongue. Love? Rashid leaned down, his face inches from mine. You are property, Amira. My property. And soon, you will be his. Do not speak to me of love. He walked away, his sandals slapping against the stone tiles, leaving me there with my face throbbing and my world collapsing. That night, I lay in my enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, and I prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. Allah, please. Please don't make me do this. Please give me a way out. Silence. Just like always. Have you ever screamed into a void and heard nothing back? Not even an echo? That's what praying felt like for me. Desperate. Empty. Like throwing my heart into a black hole and waiting for something, anything, to return. Nothing ever did. But 3 nights before my wedding, everything changed. Because the God I wasn't praying to decided to answer anyway. I need you to understand something about Khalid ibn Sarif before I go any further. He wasn't just cruel. Cruelty is almost predictable. You can prepare for it, brace yourself, build walls around your heart. But Khalid was something worse. He was methodical. Patient. He enjoyed watching people break slowly, like he was conducting an experiment to see exactly how much pressure a human soul could take before it shattered completely. The first time I actually met him, not just saw him across a room, was 6 days before the wedding. Rashid summoned me to his study, and when I entered, Khalid was already there, sitting in the leather chair beside my father's desk like he owned the place. Maybe he did. I was learning that ownership meant something different in their world. Sit, Rashid commanded, gesturing to the chair across from them. I sat. Hands folded in my lap. Eyes lowered. The perfect, obedient daughter. Look at your husband, Amira. My stomach turned, but I obeyed. I lifted my eyes and met Khalid's gaze. He was smiling. Not a warm smile. Not even a predatory smile. It was something colder, satisfied, like a man who'd just purchased a rare artifact and was inspecting it for flaws. His beard was meticulously trimmed, streaked with silver. His thobe was pristine white, expensive fabric that probably cost more than a car. But it was his hands that made my skin crawl. Thick fingers. Scarred knuckles. Hands that had done things. Terrible things. She is adequate, Khalid said finally, speaking to Rashid as if I wasn't even there. The skin is good. The structure is acceptable. She will produce suitable children. I felt bile rise in my throat. He was talking about me like livestock. Like I was a horse he was considering breeding. She is obedient, Rashid assured him. Well trained. She knows her place. Does she? Khalid's eyes slid back to me, and something flickered in them, amusement mixed with challenge. Tell me, Amira. Do you know your place? Every instinct screamed at me to stay silent, to nod, to agree. But something in his tone, that mocking edge, ignited a spark of rebellion I didn't know I still had. My place is wherever Allah wills it to be, I said quietly. The room went silent. Rashid's jaw tightened. Khalid's smile widened. Clever, Khalid said softly. I like that. Intelligence can be useful, as long as it doesn't become defiance. He stood, crossing the space between us in 3 long strides. I forced myself not to flinch as he reached out and grabbed my chin, not gently, but not quite violently either. Just firm enough to remind me that he could. His thumb pressed against my jawbone as he tilted my face up, studying me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. You have your mother's eyes, he murmured. My blood turned to ice. What? The word escaped before I could stop it. Your real mother. His smile was razor-sharp now. Sarah, wasn't it? Yes. I remember her. She had the same eyes. Green, defiant. She looked at me exactly like you're looking at me now, right before I slit her throat. The world stopped. Everything, sound, time, breath, just stopped. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. His words echoed in my skull like gunshots, each one obliterating a piece of my sanity. He killed them. He killed my parents. And now he's going to marry me. You, my voice came out broken, barely a whisper. You're the one who. Yes. He released my chin and stepped back, adjusting his thobe casually, like he'd just commented on the weather. Rashid and I led that raid together. Necessary work, you understand. That Christian community was spreading poison, converting good Muslims, corrupting the faithful. Your parents were particularly troublesome. Always preaching, always, he waved his hand dismissively. Well, they're not troublesome anymore. I couldn't breathe. My chest was collapsing, my lungs refusing to work. I looked at Rashid, my father, the man who raised me, who fed me, who taught me to pray, and he stared back with those dead, black eyes. You knew? I choked out. All this time, you knew? Of course I knew, Rashid said flatly. I was there. And now you will marry the man who freed you from your parents' blasphemy. You should be grateful, Amira. We saved your soul. Saved I couldn't finish. The words were too monstrous, too absurd. They murdered my family and called it salvation. They stole my entire life and called it mercy. Khalid crouched down in front of me, bringing his face level with mine. This close, I could smell him, expensive cologne mixed with something metallic, like old blood that never quite washes away. Let me make something very clear, Habibdi, he said, the Arabic endearment sounding like a threat. In 6 days, you will be my wife. You will share my bed. You will bear my children. You will smile when I tell you to smile, speak when I tell you to speak, and breathe when I give you permission. And if you ever look at me with defiance again, he leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. I will make you watch while I do to others what I did to your parents. Do you understand? Tears streamed down my face. I couldn't stop them. Answer him, Rashid ordered. I understand, I whispered. Good. Khalid stood, brushing invisible dust from his thobe. I will see you at the wedding, my bride. Wear white. I do appreciate symbolism. He left. Just walked out like he hadn't just destroyed the last fragile piece of my sanity. Rashid stood as well, moving toward the door, but I couldn't stop myself. The question erupted from somewhere deep and desperate. Why? My voice cracked. Why did you take me? Why raise me if you hated what my parents believed? He paused at the doorway, his back to me. Because Khalid asked me to, he said simply. He saw you that night. Saw potential. He said, save the girl. I'll marry her when she's old enough. So I did. You were an investment, Amira. And now it's time to collect. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a coffin sealing shut. I don't remember how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? Time stopped meaning anything. They had planned this. For 12 years, they had planned this. Every meal I ate, every lesson I learned, every time Rashid corrected my posture or my prayers or my speech, it was all preparation. Grooming. Shaping me into the perfect victim for the man who slaughtered my family. I stumbled back to my room somehow, my legs barely supporting me. My handmaid, Salma, tried to ask if I needed anything, but I waved her away. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. I needed to. I couldn't think. My mind was a war zone, explosions of memory and revelation and horror detonating one after another. My mother's voice, Jesus is with you. Always. Khalid's smile as he admitted killing her. Rashid's dead eyes, you were an investment. I collapsed onto my bed and screamed into my pillow until my throat was raw and no sound came out anymore. Then I lay there, staring at nothing, feeling nothing, because feeling would mean acknowledging that this was real. That in 6 days, I would be handed over to my parents' murderer like a gift with a bow on top. That night, I prayed to Allah again. Desperate. Broken. Please. Please. If you're real, if you care, if there's any mercy in you at all, kill me. Let me die. Don't make me live through this. I'm begging you. Silence. Always silence. And somewhere in that silence, a terrible thought began to form. A question I'd been taught never to ask, a doubt I'd been trained to crush the moment it appeared. What if Allah isn't listening, because Allah isn't there? The thought terrified me more than Khalid, more than the wedding, more than death itself. Because if Allah wasn't there, then I was completely, utterly, impossibly alone. The next 5 days passed like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Wedding preparations consumed the house, fabric deliveries, caterers, florists, relatives arriving from other cities. Everyone was celebrating except me. I moved through it like a ghost. Smiled when required. Stood still while they measured me for my wedding dress. Nodded when Rashid's wife explained what would be expected of me on my wedding night, her words clinical and cold, like she was explaining how to operate a machine. But at night, alone in my room, I planned. I didn't plan escape, that was impossible. Rashid's house was a fortress, guards at every entrance, cameras everywhere. I didn't plan rebellion, that would only get me beaten or killed, and neither option changed anything. I planned my death. It was the only choice I had left. The only power I still possessed. I would wait until the wedding night, wait until Khalid came to claim what he'd purchased, and then I would find a way. A knife. A window. Something sharp, something high, something final. They could control my life, but they couldn't control my death. Have you ever been so trapped that ending your own life felt like freedom? That's where I was. That's how far they'd pushed me. And I'm telling you this because I need you to understand, when Jesus found me, I wasn't looking for him. I wasn't searching for God. I had given up on God completely. But apparently, he hadn't given up on me. Because 3 nights before my wedding, while I lay in my bed planning my suicide, my bedroom filled with light. And everything changed. 3 nights before the wedding, I stopped eating. Not as a hunger strike, no one cared enough to notice. I stopped because food tasted like ash in my mouth. Everything did. Water. Air. Existence itself felt like swallowing poison slowly, waiting for it to finally stop my heart. Salma, my handmaid, tried to coax me. She brought honeyed pastries, fragrant rice, lamb cooked with spices that once made my mouth water. She'd set the tray beside my bed and whisper, "Please, Sayyidati. You need your strength." Strength for what? I wanted to ask. Strength to survive being raped by my parents' murderer? Strength to smile while he touched me with the same hands that slit my mother's throat? I said nothing. Just stared at the ceiling until she left, taking the untouched food with her. The house was chaos during the day, final preparations, last-minute adjustments, Rashid barking orders at servants who scurried like frightened mice. But night? Night was when the real torture began. Because that's when I was alone with my prayers. I need you to understand what prayer meant to me before everything changed. It wasn't just ritual, it was my lifeline. 5 times a day, every day since I was 7 years old, I prostrated myself toward Mecca and poured my heart out to Allah. When I was young and the nightmares came, when I'd wake up screaming, remembering my mother's blood spreading across the floor, prayer was the only thing that calmed me. "Allah hears you," Rashid's wife would say, adjusting my hijab before dawn prayer. "Allah sees your pain. He has a plan." I believed her. I had to believe her. Because if Allah didn't have a plan, if Allah wasn't watching over me, then my parents died for nothing and my suffering meant nothing and I was just a piece of meat being passed between monsters. So I prayed. Desperately. Obsessively. But after that meeting with Khalid, after learning the truth, that my entire life had been an orchestrated nightmare, that the men who murdered my family raised me specifically to give me to their leader as a trophy wife, something broke inside me. Not my faith. Not yet. My hope. 2 nights before the wedding, I performed wudu, the ritual washing, with water so cold it made my fingers ache. I scrubbed my hands 3 times, my mouth 3 times, my face 3 times, exactly as I'd been taught. Precision. Obedience. That's what Allah required, right? I spread my prayer mat on the marble floor of my bedroom, a beautiful mat, deep burgundy with gold thread spelling out verses from the Quran. I'd received it as a gift on my 16th birthday. I used to cherish it. Now it felt like kneeling on glass. I faced Mecca. Raised my hands beside my head. Whispered Allahu Akbar, God is greatest. But the words tasted like lies. I bowed. Prostrated. Touched my forehead to the mat. And I prayed with everything I had left. Allah, please. Please hear me. I know I'm nothing. I know I'm just a woman, just a servant, just nothing. But please. You're all-powerful, right? You're merciful? The most compassionate, the most merciful, that's what they call you. So please, show me mercy. Save me from this. I don't deserve it, I know I don't, but please. I'll do anything. I'll be better. I'll pray more. I'll memorize more Quran. I'll cover myself more. My voice broke. Tears soaked the prayer mat beneath my face. Please don't make me marry him. Please. He killed my mother. He killed my father. He's going to hurt me. You know he's going to hurt me. So why? Why are you letting this happen? What did I do? What sin did I commit that deserves this? Silence. I stayed there, forehead pressed to the ground, waiting for something. A feeling. A peace. A sign. Even just the absence of dread would have been enough. Nothing came. I prayed the entire Isha prayer, the night prayer, perfectly. Every word correct. Every movement precise. I recited Ayat al-Kursi, the throne verse, which they said offered protection. I recited Al-Fatiha, the opening chapter, which they said Allah always listened to. Still nothing. The ceiling didn't open. My heart didn't calm. The crushing weight on my chest didn't lift even slightly. I was praying to an empty sky. Have you ever talked to someone who you slowly realize isn't actually listening? Who's just waiting for you to stop speaking so they can move on to something more important? That's what prayer started to feel like. Like I was having a one-sided conversation with someone who couldn't be bothered to respond. But I tried again the next morning. Far prayer, before dawn, when the world was still dark and supposedly Allah was closest to his creation. I stood on my balcony, wrapped in a thick shawl against the cold morning air, and I watched the sun begin to rise over the Arabian Sea. It was beautiful, orange and pink light spilling across the water, painting everything gold. They said creation proved Allah's existence. Look at the beauty, look at the design, look at the perfect order. But all I could think was, if Allah created all this beauty, why did He create so much ugliness in my life? I prayed anyway. Recited the words. Went through the motions. And felt absolutely nothing. After prayer, I opened the Quran. Maybe I'd missed something. Maybe there was a verse, a promise, something that would explain why God would allow His servant to suffer like this. I found verses about patience. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. But I'd been patient for 12 years. I found verses about tests. Do people think they will be left alone because they say, "We believe," and will not be tested? But what kind of test involves forcing someone to marry their parents' murderer? I found verses about women. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. As for those from whom you fear disobedience, admonish them, forsake them in beds apart, and beat them. I slammed the book shut. My hands were shaking. Not from cold. From something darker, a creeping, terrifying realization that I'd been pushing away for years but could no longer ignore. These aren't just rules. This is a cage. And Allah isn't going to open the door. That afternoon, Rashid's wife came to my room with the other women, aunts, cousins, family friends, for the henna ceremony. They were supposed to decorate my hands and feet with intricate designs, celebrate my upcoming marriage with songs and sweets and laughter. I sat in the center of the room like a corpse at its own funeral. They chattered around me, painting my skin with cold, sticky henna that smelled like earth and metal. The designs were beautiful: flowers, geometric patterns, swirls that climbed up my forearms like vines. They told me it was a blessing. That the darker the henna stained, the more my husband would love me. I wanted to scream. He doesn't love me. He purchased me. There's a difference. But I stayed silent. Let them paint me. Let them sing. One of the older women, Aunt Fatima, leaned in close and whispered, "Don't look so sad, Habibti. Every bride is nervous. But you'll see, marriage is a blessing. This is your Jannah, your paradise, right here on earth." I looked at her. Really looked at her. She had bruises on her wrists, faded yellow-green, the kind you get from being grabbed too hard. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Is that what your marriage is?" I asked quietly. "Paradise?" Her smile faltered. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face: recognition, pain, truth. Then she looked away. "We do what we must," she said softly. "Allah's will. Allah's will. The answer to everything. The excuse for everything. Why did my parents die? Allah's will. Why am I being forced to marry a monster? Allah's will. Why doesn't anyone help me? Allah's will." It was a perfect system, really. Unquestionable. Unfalsifiable. If something good happened, Allah was merciful. If something terrible happened, Allah was testing you. Either way, you submit. You obey. You suffer in silence. And if you dare to question it, you're the problem. Your faith is weak. Your heart is corrupted. You deserve whatever happens to you. That night, one night before the wedding, I prayed one last time. I didn't bother with wudu. Didn't bother with the prayer mat. I just collapsed on my bedroom floor, still wearing my clothes, henna still drying on my hands, and I screamed at the ceiling. "Where are you?" My voice echoed off the marble walls. "I've done everything. Everything. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted. I covered myself. I obeyed. I memorized your words. I submitted to everything. And for what?" Tears and snot ran down my face. I didn't care. "Is this really your will? That I marry the man who murdered my parents? That I spend the rest of my life being raped and beaten and used? Is that really what you want? Because if it is, then you're not merciful. You're not compassionate. You're cruel." The words hung in the air like blasphemy. And they were the worst kind. Questioning Allah's goodness was the unforgivable sin. But I didn't care anymore. "I hate you," I whispered. "I hate you for making me. I hate you for taking my parents. I hate you for giving me to monsters. I hate you for being silent." Still nothing. No lightning bolt. No divine punishment. No response at all. Just silence. The same silence I'd been screaming into for 12 years. I lay there on the cold floor, staring at nothing, feeling nothing, until numbness replaced the rage. And in that numbness, I finally accepted the truth I'd been running from my entire life. Allah isn't silent because He's testing me. He's silent because He's not there. I'm praying to nothing. I'm alone. And tomorrow, I would marry a monster. And the day after that, he would destroy whatever was left of me. And no one, not Allah, not the angels, not anyone, was coming to save me. So I would save myself the only way I could. I would end it. I don't know what time I finally fell asleep. Late. Maybe not at all. But somewhere in those dark hours between despair and dawn, while I lay on that cold marble floor with henna-stained hands and a broken heart, my bedroom filled with light. Not the gentle orange of sunrise. Not the harsh white of the overhead lights. But something else. Something impossible. Something that shouldn't exist. I opened my eyes. And he was standing there. Wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you about the light, before I tell you about him, I need to take you back. Because the moment Jesus appeared in my room wasn't random. It wasn't arbitrary. He was answering a question I'd been asking for weeks without even realizing it. A question that started with a book I wasn't supposed to have. Let me rewind. 3 weeks before the wedding announcement. Before I knew about Khalid. Before everything fell apart. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was bored. That sounds so mundane, doesn't it? But boredom was dangerous in my world. Boredom led to curiosity. Curiosity led to questions. Questions led to punishment. I was in Rashid's private library, a room I wasn't technically supposed to enter without permission, but he was away on business and I'd learned which floorboards creaked and which didn't. The library was my secret rebellion, the only place where I could breathe something other than the suffocating air of obligation and ritual. The shelves were filled with books on Islamic law, commentaries on the Quran, historical texts about conquests and caliphates. Dry. dense. Designed to impress visitors, not to actually be read. But there was one shelf in the back, behind a leather chair, where Rashid kept different books. Books he'd confiscated over the years from raids, from arrests, from people who dared to think differently. He kept them as trophies, I think. Evidence of his victories over corrupting influences. I'd looked through some of them before: philosophy books, Western novels, political manifestos. Forbidden, but not particularly interesting to me. I was looking for an escape, not a lecture. That day, I pulled a book at random. It was small. Leather-bound. Old. The cover was unmarked, and when I opened it, the pages were thin, almost translucent, covered in English text. English. I hadn't read English in 12 years. Rashid forbade it, the language of colonizers and crusaders, he called it. But my mother had taught me before she died, and somewhere deep in my brain, the words were still there, waiting. I flipped to the first page. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. My heart stopped. This was a Bible. The Gospel of John, specifically, though I didn't know that at the time. I just knew it was the most dangerous book I could possibly be holding. If Rashid found me with this, if anyone found me with this, I should have put it back. Should have walked away. Should have forgotten I ever saw it. Instead, I tucked it under my abaya and carried it back to my room like stolen treasure. That night, I locked my bedroom door, something I rarely did, because privacy was considered suspicious. I turned off all the lights except one small lamp by my bedside. I pulled the curtains closed. And I opened the Bible with trembling hands. I need you to understand the fear I felt. This wasn't like sneaking a forbidden romance novel or watching a band movie. In my world, possessing a Bible could get you arrested. Reading it could get you beaten. Converting because of it could get you killed. But I couldn't stop myself. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was defiance. Maybe it was the fact that my mother had believed this book was worth dying for, and I needed to understand why. I started reading. The language was archaic, formal, hard to follow at first. My English was rusty, and the concepts were foreign. But certain phrases jumped out at me, vivid and strange and beautiful. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. I read that line 3 times. There was something in it that resonated, though I couldn't explain why. Living in Rashid's house felt like living in darkness, constant, oppressive, suffocating. The idea that light could exist in darkness and not be destroyed, it felt like hope. But hope for what? I kept reading. Slowly. Carefully. Night after night, while the house slept, I would lock my door and read a few more verses. Sometimes I understood them. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes they confused me. Sometimes they made me angry. But I couldn't stop. 2 weeks before the wedding announcement, I reached John 8 verse 32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I stared at those words until they blurred. Freedom. The Quran talked about submission, obedience, surrender. But this book, this strange, forbidden book, talked about freedom. About truth leading to liberation, not bondage. What truth? I wondered. Freedom from what? I flipped back through the pages, looking for context, and I found something I'd skipped over the first time. John 8 verses 31 to 36. Jesus speaking to people who believed in him. If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, We are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? Jesus replied, Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I read it again and again. Everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Was I a slave? I'd never thought of it that way. I was a daughter, a Muslim, a woman fulfilling her role. But slave? And who was this son who could set people free? I kept reading deeper into the gospel. And slowly, piece by piece, I started to see a pattern. This Jesus, he was nothing like what I'd been taught. In the Quran, Jesus, or Isa, as we called him, was a prophet. A good man. A messenger of Allah. But just a man. He didn't die on a cross, Allah saved him, replaced him with someone else. He certainly wasn't God's son. That was blasphemy. Shirk, the unforgivable sin of associating partners with Allah. But this Bible said something completely different. It said Jesus was God. That he became human. That he died willingly. That he rose from the dead. That he claimed to be the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one could come to God except through him. It was insane. Blasphemous. Impossible. And yet, I couldn't stop reading. Because the more I read about this Jesus, the more I saw something I'd never seen in Islam. Love. Not conditional love. If you obey, Allah will love you. Not transactional love. Do good deeds, earn paradise. But unconditional, sacrificial love. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. John 3 verse 16. I must have read that verse 50 times. God loved the world. Not just the obedient. Not just the righteous. The world. Enough to give his Son. Enough to sacrifice. Enough to die. I had spent my entire life trying to earn Allah's love. Praying 5 times a day. Fasting. Covering myself. Obeying. And I still never felt loved. I felt tolerated, at best. Useful, like a tool. But loved? Never. But this Jesus. He loved people before they earned it. While they were still sinners. While they were still broken. He loved prostitutes. Tax collectors. Outcasts. Women. He touched lepers when everyone else ran away. He defended an adulteress from being stoned to death. He wept when his friend died. He was tender. Compassionate. Human in a way I'd never associated with divinity. One night, about a week before the wedding announcement, I read John 14. Jesus was talking to his disciples, trying to comfort them because he was about to die. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you?" I started crying. I didn't even know why at first. The words just broke something inside me. "Do not let your hearts be troubled." My heart had been troubled my entire life. Since the night I watched my parents die. Since Rashid took me. Since I learned that survival meant erasing myself. I am going there to prepare a place for you. A place for me? Specifically for me? Not because I earned it, not because I performed enough rituals, but because he was preparing it? Who was this person? And then I read John 14 verse 6, and everything stopped. Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. No one comes to the Father except through me. Not through good deeds. Not through prayer. Not through Muhammad. Through Jesus. Only Jesus." It was the most exclusive, arrogant, impossible claim I'd ever read. And something deep inside me whispered, what if it's true? I'm not going to lie to you. I fought that thought with everything I had. Because if it was true, if Jesus really was the only way to God, then everything I'd been taught was wrong. The Quran was wrong. Muhammad was wrong. Islam was wrong. And if Islam was wrong, then my parents died for truth, not blasphemy. They were martyrs, not heretics. And I was the one living a lie. That realization didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, like light filtering through cracks in a wall I'd spent 12 years building. And every crack terrified me. Because believing in Jesus didn't just mean changing my mind. It meant betraying my family, my community, my entire identity. It meant risking my life. But the more I read, the more I couldn't not believe. Especially when I reached John 16 verse 33. I have told you these things, so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. I have overcome the world. Not submit to the world. Not endure the world. Not earn your way through the world. Overcome. Victory. Power. I closed the Bible and held it against my chest, and I did something I never thought I'd do. I prayed to Jesus. Not eloquently. Not in Arabic. Not with any ritual or structure. Just honestly. "I don't know if you're real," I whispered into the darkness. "I don't know if you can hear me. But if you can, if you're really who this book says you are, I need you. I'm so tired. I'm so alone. And I don't know what to do anymore. So if you're real, please. Show me. Please." Nothing happened. No light. No voice. No burning bush. I fell asleep disappointed, the Bible hidden under my mattress. But 3 days later, Rashid called me into his study and told me I was marrying Khalid. And 2 weeks after that, when I lay on my bedroom floor, broken and hopeless, having given up on Allah completely, Jesus answered the prayer I'd forgotten I'd prayed. The light didn't come like sunrise. It didn't gradually brighten the room or creep in through the windows. It appeared. One moment, I was lying on the cold marble floor in complete darkness, my body numb, my mind empty, my soul shattered into pieces I didn't think could ever be put back together. The next moment, my bedroom was filled with light so brilliant, so impossibly white, that I should have been blinded. But I wasn't. Instead, the light felt warm, alive, like it had weight and presence and intention. I gasped and scrambled backward, my henna-stained hands slipping on the smooth floor. My first thought was that Rashid had come in, that I'd fallen asleep with the lights off and he'd found me on the floor like a disobedient child. But this wasn't electric light. This was something else entirely. And then I saw him. Jesus stood in the center of my bedroom, and I knew it was him. Not because he matched the paintings I'd seen in the Bible's margins, he didn't. Not because someone told me, no one was there. I just knew the same way you know when you're awake versus dreaming, when something is real versus imagined. This was real. He was real. And he was looking directly at me. I need to describe this carefully because words feel so inadequate, like trying to describe color to someone who's only ever seen black and white. But I have to try. You need to understand what I saw. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, maybe more. His skin was olive-toned, Middle Eastern, like mine. Not the pale European Jesus from Western paintings. His hair was dark, shoulder-length, with a slight wave to it. His beard was trimmed but full. He wore simple robes, white, but not pristine. They looked lived in, real, like he'd actually walked dusty roads in them. But it was his eyes that undid me. I've tried for years to find the right words for his eyes, and I still can't. They were brown, deep, warm brown, but there was something in them. Light, love, knowledge, all of that and more. When he looked at me, I felt like he was seeing everything. Not just my face or my body, but my soul. Every thought I'd ever had. Every sin I'd ever committed. Every wound I'd ever hidden. He saw all of it. And he didn't look away. I couldn't breathe. My lungs forgot how to work. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're not real. I'm hallucinating. I'm losing my mind. You're not. Amira." He said my name. His voice, oh God, his voice. It wasn't loud, but it filled the entire room, filled my entire body, like sound waves passing through water. Deep. Gentle. Resonant. And when he spoke my name, it sounded like he'd been saying it my whole life. Like he'd known me before I was born. Tears started streaming down my face before I even realized I was crying. "How do you know my name?" I choked out. He smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a slight curve at the corners of his mouth, but it radiated warmth like standing in sunlight after years in a cave. "I've always known your name," he said. "I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. I've been with you every moment of your life, Amira. Every tear you've cried, I've collected. Every prayer you've whispered, I've heard." No, I shook my head violently. No, that's not true. I prayed. I prayed to Allah for years and he never answered. He never. You weren't praying to me. The words were gentle, but they cut through me like a blade. But now you are, Jesus continued, taking a step closer. 3 weeks ago, you asked me to show you if I was real. Do you remember? I did. The night I'd first prayed to him awkwardly, desperately, after reading the Gospel of John. I thought you didn't hear me, I whispered. I heard you. He took another step closer, and I should have been afraid, this impossible being, this divine presence in my bedroom, but I wasn't. His presence was the opposite of fear. It was peace. The kind of peace I'd been searching for my entire life and never found. I've been preparing you, Amira. Softening your heart. Opening your eyes. Everything you've read, everything you've questioned, everything you've suffered, I've been leading you to this moment. Why? The question burst out of me, raw and desperate. Why would you care about me? Why would you come to me? I'm nobody. I'm broken. I'm a slave. I'm about to be married to a monster and there's nothing I can do about it, and I don't understand why you would. Because I love you. 4 words. That's all it took. 4 words, and I collapsed. Not physically, though my legs did buckle, but emotionally, spiritually, every wall I'd ever built just crumbled. I fell to my knees, sobbing so hard my whole body shook, and I couldn't stop. 12 years of pain, of fear, of pretending, of suffocating, of dying slowly inside, it all came pouring out in great, wrenching sobs that sounded like they were being torn from somewhere deep in my chest. I love you, Jesus said again, and suddenly he was kneeling in front of me, his hand reaching out. May I? I didn't understand what he was asking, but I nodded. He placed his hand on my head, and everything changed. I don't know how to explain what happened next. It was like being filled with light from the inside out. Warm. Clean. Pure. Like every dark, poison part of me was being washed away, replaced with something new and whole and good. The shame I'd carried, the feeling that I was dirty, used, worthless, gone. The fear that had lived in my chest for 12 years, making it hard to breathe, gone. The rage, the bitterness, the hatred toward Rashid and Khalid and Allah and myself, gone. Not suppressed. Not hidden. Not managed. Gone. Replaced with. I don't even know what to call it. Joy. Love. Peace. All of those words feel too small. It was like being born again. That's the only way I can describe it. I was being born again, right there on my bedroom floor, with Jesus's hand on my head and light pouring through me like water through a broken dam. I don't know how long it lasted. Seconds? Minutes? Hours? Time stopped meaning anything. When I finally opened my eyes, and I don't remember closing them, Jesus was still there, still kneeling in front of me, still looking at me with those eyes that saw everything and loved me anyway. Do you understand now? He asked softly. Understand what? My voice was hoarse from crying. Why I came. He smiled again, and this time it was fuller, warmer. I didn't come for the righteous, Amira. I came for the broken. The lost. The enslaved. I came to set captives free. And you, my beloved daughter, have been in chains long enough. But Khalid, my voice cracked. The wedding is tomorrow. He's going to. I know what he plans to do, Jesus said, and for the first time, his voice carried an edge. Not anger, exactly, but authority. Power. and I will not allow it. Do you trust me? Did I trust him? I just met him. This should have been insane. I should have been questioning my sanity, wondering if I'd finally snapped, if grief and trauma had broken my mind completely. But looking into his eyes, feeling the peace that radiated from him, remembering the light that had just filled me and made me feel clean for the first time in my life. Yes, I whispered. I trust you. Then listen carefully. He stood, and I scrambled to my feet as well, not wanting to be separated from him by even a few inches. Tomorrow, they will try to take you. Tomorrow, Khalid will try to claim you. But I am going to do something that will leave no doubt, not in your heart, not in theirs, that you belong to me. Not to Rashid. Not to Khalid. Not to Islam. To me. What are you going to do? You'll see. His eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement. But Amira, you need to understand, when I set you free tomorrow, there will be a cost. They will turn against you. They will hunt you. You will lose everything you've ever known. Your home. Your family. Your safety. Are you willing to pay that price? I thought about my home, the marble floors, the expensive abayas, the luxury I'd lived in. Then I thought about the prison bars hidden behind all that beauty. I thought about my family, Rashid with his dead eyes, Khalid with his blood-stained hands, the relatives who smiled while planning my destruction. I thought about safety, which I'd never really had anyway. And I looked at Jesus, at this man who loved me enough to appear in my bedroom, who knew my name, who saw my pain and came to heal it. I'm willing, I said. I'll lose everything if it means I can have you. The smile he gave me then was radiant, beautiful, like the sun breaking through storm clouds. You won't lose everything, daughter, he said gently. You'll gain everything. You'll gain me. And I am enough. He started to fade then, the light around him growing softer, and panic seized my chest. Wait. I reached out, desperate. Don't leave. Please don't leave me here alone. I can't. I'm not leaving you. His voice was still there even as his form grew dimmer. I will never leave you. I'm with you always, Amira. Even to the end of the age. When you're afraid tomorrow, remember, I am with you. When they threaten you, remember, I am with you. When it seems impossible, remember, I have already won this battle. Trust me. But how will I know what to do? You'll know. His smile was the last thing I saw before the light faded completely. I promise, daughter. You'll know. And then he was gone. The bedroom returned to normal darkness. The lamp by my bed cast its small, ordinary circle of light. The curtains hung still. Everything looked exactly as it had before. Except me. I wasn't the same. I looked down at my hands, still stained with henna, still trembling, but they felt different. I felt different. Like I'd been hollow my entire life and suddenly, finally, I was full. Full of light. Full of love. Full of purpose. I walked to the mirror on my wall and stared at my reflection. Same face. Same dark eyes. Same olive skin. But something in my expression had changed. There was no fear there anymore. No desperation. No hopelessness. There was peace. And underneath that peace, something else. Strength. I touched the mirror, pressing my palm against my reflection's palm, and I whispered the truth that was burning in my chest. I'm not Muslim anymore. The words should have terrified me. They should have felt like betrayal, like blasphemy, like signing my own death warrant. Instead, they felt like freedom. I'm not Rashid's daughter. I'm not Khalid's bride. I'm not anyone's property. My voice grew stronger. I am a daughter of Jesus Christ. And tomorrow, everyone is going to know it. I should have been afraid. Tomorrow was my wedding day. Tomorrow, I would face Khalid, Rashid, hundreds of guests, the imam who would officiate, the entire system designed to crush girls like me into submission. But I wasn't afraid. Because Jesus had promised me, I am with you. And somehow, impossibly, I believed him. I climbed into my bed, the same bed I'd been planning to sleep in one last time before ending my life. But I wasn't planning suicide anymore. I was planning something far more dangerous. I was planning to live. Not survive. Not endure. Not submit. Live. As I pulled the covers over myself, I noticed something on my nightstand. The Bible I'd hidden under my mattress was sitting there, open to a page I didn't remember marking. I picked it up and read the verse my eyes landed on. Isaiah 41 verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you, do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I closed the book, held it against my chest, and smiled through fresh tears. Okay, Jesus, I whispered into the darkness. I trust you. Show them who you are. Show them who I am. Set me free. And then, for the first time in 12 years, I fell asleep without nightmares. Because the light had come. And the darkness couldn't overcome it. I woke up to the sound of chaos. Women's voices. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. Salma bursting through my door without knocking, her eyes wide with panic and excitement. Say Idadi. Wake up. It's your wedding day. We're already behind schedule. My wedding day. The words that should have filled me with dread now felt different. Not like a death sentence. Like a battleground. And I wasn't going to the slaughter anymore. I was going to war. I sat up slowly, and Salma gasped. Your face, she whispered, stepping closer. You look different. I did. I could feel it. The peace from last night hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened, settled into my bones like an anchor. My hands weren't shaking. My chest wasn't tight. I felt calm. Supernaturally calm. I'm fine, I said, standing. Better than fine, actually. Salma looked confused but didn't argue. She started pulling clothes from my closet, the undergarments, the slip, the preparation for the elaborate wedding dress waiting downstairs. As she fussed over me, my mind raced. Jesus had said he would do something today. Something that would leave no doubt. But what? And when? During the ceremony? Before? After? You'll know, he'd promised. Trust me. So I did. The house was transformed. Flowers everywhere, white roses, orchids, arrangements that probably cost more than a car. The scent was overwhelming, cloying, mixing with the oud incense burning in every room. Servants rushed back and forth, carrying trays, adjusting decorations, preparing food for the hundreds of guests who would arrive this afternoon. It was beautiful. It was a prison dressed as paradise. Rashid's wife came to my room as Salma finished my makeup. She looked me over with her usual critical eye, checking for flaws, for anything that might embarrass the family. "You'll do," she said finally, which was the closest she ever came to a compliment. "The dress is ready. Come." I followed her down the hall to the dressing room where my wedding gown waited on a mannequin. It was stunning. White silk, hand-embroidered with gold thread, crystals that caught the light like stars. The veil was layers of delicate lace that would cover me completely, hide me, erase me under fabric and tradition. They began dressing me. Layers upon layers. The dress was heavy, restrictive, like wearing chains made of silk. I let them. Stayed silent. Played the role. But inside, I was praying. "Jesus, I trust you. Whatever you're going to do, I'm ready. Just, please, be with me. Like you promised." And I felt it, that same peace, that same presence. Like he was standing right beside me, invisible but there. "I am with you," his voice whispered in my spirit. "Don't be afraid." They finished dressing me. Applied more makeup. Adjusted the veil. Stood back to admire their work. "Perfect," Rashid's wife declared. "Khalid will be very pleased." The mention of his name should have made me flinch. Instead, I felt nothing. No fear. No rage. Just calm certainty. Khalid wasn't going to touch me. Jesus had promised. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m., time to end just before Maghrib prayer at sunset. Guests started arriving around 2 p.m., black cars pulling up to the house, men in thobes and women in abayas, everyone dressed in their finest. I was kept in a separate room, hidden, as was tradition. The bride doesn't appear until the contract is signed, until everything is official and there's no escape. But I could hear everything. The laughter. The congratulations. Khalid's voice, deep and confident, accepting praise from the men. Rashid's voice, proud, like he was completing a successful business transaction. Which, I suppose, he was. Around 3:30 p.m., Salma came to get me. "It's time, Sayyidati." My heart should have been pounding. My hands should have been shaking. But they weren't. Because Jesus said, "You'll know." And suddenly, I did. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. They led me downstairs to the main hall where the ceremony would take place. It was packed, easily 300 people, maybe more. The men sat on one side, the women on the other, a thick curtain separating them as was proper. I was positioned at the front, on a raised platform covered in white fabric and flowers. Beside me, an empty chair for Khalid. In front of us, the imam, an old man with a white beard and cold eyes, the same imam who'd taught me Quran as a child. Through the gap in my veil, I could see Rashid watching from the front row. His face was expressionless as always. Dead eyes. Monster's eyes. Then Khalid entered. The room fell silent as he walked down the aisle. He was dressed in pristine white, his beard freshly trimmed, his movements confident and predatory. He sat in the chair beside me without looking at me, because looking at your bride before the contract was signed was inappropriate. The imam began speaking. Arabic phrases about marriage, about duty, about submission. About how I was now passing from my father's authority to my husband's authority, from one owner to another. Everyone listened with bowed heads. Everyone except me. Because Jesus was speaking too. Not out loud. But in my spirit, clear as day. Stand up. My eyes widened. Now, Amira. Stand up. I didn't think. Didn't question. I just obeyed. I stood up. The imam stopped mid-sentence, confused. The entire room went silent. 300 people staring at me. Khalid turned to look at me for the first time, his eyes narrowing. Sit down, he hissed under his breath. Speak. No, I said. My voice was quiet, but in that massive silent room, it carried like a shout. Khalid's face darkened. What did you say? Louder. No. This time I shouted it. I won't sit down. I won't marry you. I won't. Khalid stood abruptly, grabbing my arm hard enough to bruise. You will be silent, he snarled, his face close to mine. You will obey, or I will. Tell them. I ripped my veil off. Gasps echoed through the room. Women covered their mouths in shock. The imam stumbled backward. A bride removing her own veil, showing her face publicly before the marriage was complete, it was scandalous. Shameful. I didn't care. You will do to me what you did to my parents? I shouted, my voice ringing through the hall. What you did to my mother, Sarah? What you did to my father, Michael? When you murdered them 12 years ago? The room erupted. People talking over each other, confused, shocked. Khalid's grip on my arm tightened painfully, his face contorting with rage. You stupid girl, he hissed. You don't know what you're. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Not even a little. I know you killed them because they were Christians. I know Rashid helped you. I know you kept me alive so you could marry me, so you could own me, so you could destroy the last piece of them. But you can't. Because I'm not yours. I don't belong to you. I don't belong to Rashid. I don't belong to Islam. Kafir, someone shouted from the crowd. Heresy. Apostasy. I belong to Jesus Christ, I said, louder now, my voice filled with power I didn't know I had. He appeared to me last night. He told me he loves me. He told me he's setting me free. And I believe him. I choose him. Not Muhammad. Not Allah. Jesus. The room exploded into chaos. Women screaming. Men shouting. The imam calling for order. Rashid on his feet, his face twisted with rage. But Khalid went silent. Dangerously silent. His hand released my arm and moved to his belt, where I knew he kept a knife. You will die for this, he said quietly, his voice like ice. Right here. Right now. I will cut your throat in front of everyone, just like I cut your mother's. He pulled the knife. The blade gleamed in the afternoon light streaming through the windows. People scattered, screaming, trying to get away from the platform. Khalid raised the knife. And I closed my eyes. Jesus, you promised. Stop. The voice wasn't mine. Wasn't human. It thundered through the room like a physical force, shaking the walls, rattling the windows. I opened my eyes. The room was filled with light. Not from the windows. Not from the chandeliers. From everywhere and nowhere. The same light that had filled my bedroom last night, brilliant, white, impossible, was now flooding the entire hall. People fell to their knees, covering their eyes, crying out in terror and awe. Khalid stumbled backward, the knife falling from his hand and clattering to the floor. And Jesus appeared. Right there. In the center of the room. Visible to everyone. He looked exactly as he had in my bedroom, Middle Eastern features, simple robes, dark hair. But his presence was magnified 1,000 times. The air itself seemed to bend around him, charged with power that made my skin tingle and my hair stand on end. His eyes swept across the room, and grown men wept. Women prostrated themselves. The imam collapsed, trembling. Then Jesus looked at me. And he smiled. Amira, he said, his voice gentle despite the power radiating from him. Come here, daughter. I didn't hesitate. I stepped off the platform and walked toward him, my wedding dress trailing behind me, and I felt safe. More safe than I'd ever felt in my entire life. When I reached him, he placed his hand on my shoulder. Do you see? He said, not to me, but to the room. This is my daughter. Not yours. Mine. And anyone who harms her answers to me. He turned to Khalid, who was on his knees now, his face white with terror. You murdered her parents, Jesus said, his voice carrying that edge of authority again. You planned to enslave her. You thought you were powerful. But I tell you the truth, you are nothing. Your power is dust. Your violence is meaningless. And if you ever come near her again. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Khalid collapsed completely, face down on the floor, sobbing. Then Jesus turned to Rashid. And you, he said. You traded innocent blood for wealth. You raised this girl in lies, planning to sacrifice her to your ambition. You called it Allah's will. But you've never known Allah. You've only known your own lust for power. Repent, Rashid Al-Amir. While you still have time. Rashid's face was gray, his hands shaking. For the first time since I'd known him, his dead eyes showed something. Fear. Jesus looked back at me. Are you ready to leave this place? Yes, I whispered. But how? The doors are guarded. The walls are. Amira. His smile was gentle. I am the way. Where I lead, you can follow. Do you trust me? Yes. Then take my hand. I did. And everything changed. I can't explain what happened next in any way that makes logical sense. One moment, I was standing in that hall filled with 300 witnesses, my hand in Jesus's hand. The next moment, I was standing outside. Not at the gate. Not in the driveway. Outside the compound entirely. On the street, blocks away, far enough that the house was just a distant shape behind me. I spun around, gasping. How did you? But he was already fading. Wait. I reached for him, desperate. Where do I go? What do I do? Walk forward, he said, his voice growing softer as his form grew dimmer. I've prepared the way. People are waiting to help you. Trust me, daughter. And remember, I am always with you. But. Always. And then he was gone. I stood there on the street, alone, wearing a wedding dress worth thousands of dollars, with no money, no phone, no plan. But I wasn't afraid. Because he'd promised. And I believed him. I took a step forward. Then another. And another. Walking away from the golden cage. Walking toward freedom. Behind me, I could hear sirens. Shouting. Chaos as the household tried to make sense of what had just happened. But I didn't look back. I just kept walking. Into the unknown. Into my new life. With Jesus. I walked for 30 minutes before my legs started shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline crash. My body finally realized what had just happened, what I'd just done, what I'd just survived, and it decided to stop cooperating. I stumbled to a low wall beside the road and collapsed onto it, my ridiculous wedding dress pooling around me like a white puddle. What now? I had no money. No identification. Rashid kept my passport locked in his safe. No phone. I was wearing a wedding dress in the middle of a city where everyone knew Rashid Al-Amir's name, where his influence reached into police stations and government offices and mosques. I should have been terrified. But Jesus's words echoed in my mind, people are waiting to help you. So I waited. And I prayed. Not to Allah, never again to Allah. To Jesus. Honest, desperate, simple prayers. Okay, Jesus. I'm here. I did what you said. I walked forward. Now what? Where are these people? How will I know them? Please. I need you. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, watching cars pass, watching the sun begin to sink toward the horizon, turning the sky orange and pink. Then a car pulled up. Old. Battered. Not the kind of car anyone from Rashid's world would drive. The driver was a woman, maybe 40, maybe 50, with kind eyes and a simple black abaya. She leaned out the window and called to me in English. Amira? I froze. How do you know my name? She smiled. I had a dream 3 nights ago. Jesus told me to be on this street at this time, that I would find a girl in a wedding dress who needed help. He said her name was Amira. She pushed open the passenger door. Get in, sister. Quickly. Before someone sees you. I didn't question it. Didn't hesitate. I gathered my dress and climbed into the car. The moment the door closed, she drove, not fast enough to attract attention, but purposeful, taking side streets, avoiding main roads. Who are you? I asked. My name is Miriam, she said. I'm part of an underground network, Christians who help people like you. Converts. Apostates. People fleeing persecution. She glanced at me, her eyes shining with tears. What you did today, word is already spreading. People saw Jesus appear. They saw him defend you. They saw you vanish. Amira, do you understand? What happened in that hall is going to change lives. People are going to come to Christ because of your testimony. I started crying. Not from fear or sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. Jesus had kept his promise. He'd set me free. And he'd used my suffering, my testimony, my defiance. He was using it all for his glory. Where are you taking me? I asked, wiping my eyes. Somewhere safe, Miriam said. A house on the outskirts of the city. Other believers are there. We'll hide you until we can get you out of the country. Out of the country? The reality hit me. I'm never coming back, am I? Miriam's expression softened with sympathy. No, sister. You're not. If you stay here, they'll kill you. Apostasy from Islam is punishable by death. And with Rashid and Khalid's connections, she shook her head. You have to leave. But Jesus will take care of you. He always does. The safe house was small, a modest 2-bedroom home in a poor neighborhood where people minded their own business. When we arrived, 3 other people were waiting inside. A middle-aged man named David, a former imam who'd converted to Christianity 5 years ago and now helped run the network. A young woman named Layla, maybe 25, who'd escaped an honor-killing attempt and was waiting for papers to leave the country. And an older man named Thomas, a pastor of an underground church, with gentle eyes and calloused hands from his day job as a carpenter. They stared at me when I walked in, still wearing my wedding dress, and then David started laughing. Not mockingly, joyfully. Incredulously. We heard, he said, shaking his head in amazement. We heard what happened at the wedding. The light. Jesus appearing. The way you just disappeared. Amira, do you realize what you've done? Do you realize what God did through you? I don't understand, I said, still processing everything. It happened so fast. I obeyed. He told me to stand up, so I stood up. He told me to speak, so I spoke. That's faith, Thomas said quietly, stepping forward. Simple, radical obedience. That's what moves the hand of God. He placed his hand on my shoulder. Welcome to the family, daughter. Your life as you knew it is over. But your real life, the one Jesus died to give you, it's just beginning. They gave me normal clothes, jeans, a long-sleeved shirt, a hijab to wear as a disguise when we went out. Layla helped me wash the makeup off my face, peel away the elaborate henna designs. You're one of us now, she said softly as she worked. The hunted. The hated. The ones the world says should die. She smiled. But we're also the free. The loved. The ones Jesus says are worth dying for. That first night, I slept on a thin mattress on the floor of the safe house, and I slept better than I had in 12 years. But the next morning, reality hit hard. David came in with his phone, his face grim. Amira, you need to see this. He showed me the screen. Social media was exploding. Someone at the wedding, multiple people, actually, had recorded videos on their phones. Footage of me standing up, declaring Christ, the light filling the room. Some videos cut off before Jesus appeared, probably because people dropped their phones or ran. But enough footage existed to prove something supernatural had happened. And the internet was divided. Some people were calling it a miracle, evidence of God's power, sharing the videos with #JesusIsReal and #ModernDayMiracle. Others were calling it a hoax, mass hallucination, special effects, Western propaganda designed to attack Islam. And others, the most dangerous others, were calling for my death. The Council of Imams issued a fatwa this morning, David said quietly. Official declaration, you're an apostate. Anyone who kills you is performing a righteous act. And Rashid, he hesitated. Rashid is offering a reward. $50,000 to anyone who brings you back alive. $100,000 if they bring proof you're dead. The number hit me like a punch to the stomach. I was worth more dead than I'd ever been alive. How long before they find me? I asked. Days. Maybe less. David put his phone away. We're working on getting you out. We have contacts in the Christian community in Turkey. If we can get you across the border, you'll be safe. But it's going to take time. Papers. Money. Bribes. How much time? A week. Maybe 2. A week felt like an eternity. For the next 5 days, I lived like a ghost. I didn't leave the house. Didn't go near windows. Wore the hijab even indoors in case someone saw through a crack in the curtains. I prayed constantly, not ritual prayers, but conversations with Jesus. Honest. Desperate. Grateful. Thank you for saving me. Please keep me safe. Please help David and Miriam get the papers. Please protect them, they're risking their lives for me. Please. And he answered. Not always with words, but with peace. With that same supernatural calm that had filled me at the wedding. But on the 5th night, everything went wrong. I was sleeping when the shouting started. Police. Open the door. I sat up, heart pounding, as David rushed into the room. They found us, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Amira, you have to leave. Now. How? They're at the front door. Back window. There's an alley. Miriam is waiting with the car 2 blocks south. Go. Layla was already pulling me toward the back bedroom, throwing my few belongings into a backpack. We could hear the front door splintering. They weren't bothering with warrants or legalities. I climbed through the window, dropped into the alley, and ran. Behind me, I heard shouting. David yelling. Thomas's voice, calm but firm, trying to reason with them. I didn't look back. I ran through the darkness, my breath coming in gasps, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would explode. Jesus, please. Please help me. Guide my steps. Keep me hidden. I found the car 2 blocks south, just like David said. Miriam was behind the wheel, her face pale. Get in. I dove into the back seat. She drove before I'd even closed the door. David? I gasped. Thomas? Layla? They'll be arrested, Miriam said, her voice breaking. Questioned. Maybe tortured. But they knew the risks. They chose this. She glanced at me in the rearview mirror. We all chose this. Because Jesus is worth it. Tears streamed down my face. This is my fault. They're suffering because of me. No, Miriam's voice was firm. They're suffering because they love Jesus. And so are you. This isn't your fault, Amira. This is persecution. This is what Jesus promised would happen to his followers. In this world you will have trouble. Remember? I did remember. John 16 verse 33. But take heart, I whispered. I have overcome the world. Exactly. We drove through the night. Miriam had a new plan. We couldn't go to another safe house in the city. It was too dangerous. Instead, we were heading north, toward the Turkish border, 300 miles away. I have a contact, she explained. A truck driver who smuggles refugees across. It's dangerous. Illegal. But it's our only option now. We drove in shifts, her driving while I slept, me driving while she rested, always staying off main highways, always watching for police checkpoints. 2 days later, we reached the border town. It was dusty, poor, the kind of place where everyone was either desperate or predatory. Miriam's contact met us in a warehouse near the edge of town, a grizzled man named Yusuf with suspicious eyes and a practical demeanor. She's the girl? He asked Miriam, looking me over. The apostate everyone's looking for? Yes. He whistled low. They're offering serious money for her. You know that, right? Miriam stiffened. Will that be a problem? Yusuf looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, not warmly, but not unkindly either. Nah, he said. Money's good. But I saw the videos. I saw what happened at that wedding. I don't know if your Jesus is real or not, but, he shrugged. I'm not about to cross someone who can make light appear out of nowhere. Bad for business. He gestured to his truck. Hidden compartment in the back. It's cramped, hot, and smells like diesel. But it'll get you across. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Don't thank me yet, Yusuf muttered. Border guards are looking for you specifically. If they find you in my truck, we both die. So pray to your Jesus that we make it through. I will, I promised. The hidden compartment was exactly as advertised, cramped, hot, dark, smelling like fuel and dust. I lay there curled on my side, my backpack under my head, and I prayed. For hours, I prayed. As the truck rumbled north, as we approached the border, as Yusuf stopped at the checkpoint and I heard voices outside, guards asking questions, searching the truck bed, checking papers. Jesus, please. You brought me this far. Please don't let them find me. Please. I heard a guard climb into the truck bed, right above my hiding place. His footsteps were loud, heavy. He was searching thoroughly. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Then, just as his footsteps moved directly over the hidden compartment's entrance, a voice shouted from outside. Another guard, calling him away. Something about a different truck, something suspicious. The footsteps retreated. The truck rumbled to life. And we crossed the border into Turkey. When Youssef finally opened the compartment 2 hours later, I was sobbing, not from fear, but from overwhelming relief and gratitude. "You made it," he said, offering his hand to help me out. "Your Jesus came through." "He always does," I whispered. Turkey was different. Chaotic. Full of refugees from a dozen different conflicts. But it was also safe, at least safer. The Turkish government wasn't hunting me specifically. I could blend in. Disappear. Miriam took me to a refugee aid organization run by Christians. They gave me food, shelter, legal help applying for asylum in Europe or America. "It'll take time," the coordinator explained. "Months, maybe a year. But you're safe here." Safe. I hadn't been safe since I was 7 years old. And now, finally, I was. Not because of walls or guards or hiding. But because Jesus had carried me through the fire. That night, I stood on the balcony of the aid center's dormitory, looking out over the city, and I thought about everything I'd lost. My home. My wealth. My family, not that they'd ever really been mine. My language. My culture. My country. Everything. And I thought about what I'd gained. Freedom. Truth. Jesus. A family of believers who would risk their lives for me. Purpose. Hope. Life. I'd lost everything. And gained everything. Just like he'd promised. It's been 3 years since that wedding day. 3 years since Jesus appeared in a room full of witnesses and declared me his daughter. 3 years since I walked away from everything I'd ever known. 3 years since I crossed that border into freedom. And I need you to understand something before I finish telling you my story. This hasn't been easy. I know the testimony videos make it sound like once Jesus saved me, everything became perfect. Like I crossed into Turkey and suddenly life was sunshine and miracles and endless joy. That's not how it worked. Freedom is beautiful. But it's also hard. The first few months in Turkey were the darkest. I lived in a cramped room in the refugee center, sharing space with 4 other women, a Syrian mother with 2 children, and an Iranian girl who'd also converted from Islam. We had mattresses on the floor, 1 small window, and a bathroom we shared with 20 other people. I had nightmares every night. Not about Khalid anymore, Jesus had taken that fear away. But about everyone I'd left behind. David. Thomas. Layla. What had happened to them? Were they in prison? Had they been tortured? Killed? I had no way of knowing. And the guilt ate at me like acid. I'd saved myself, but they'd paid the price. One night, about 2 months after arriving in Turkey, I broke down completely. Collapsed on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, asking Jesus the question that had been building inside me. Why? Why did you save me and not them? They were better Christians than me. They'd served you for years. I'd known you for 3 days. Why did I get to escape and they didn't? I didn't hear his voice audibly. Not like that first night in my bedroom. But I felt his presence, and words formed in my mind, gentle, firm, undeniable. Because your story isn't over yet, daughter. You think I saved you just for you? No. I saved you for them. For all the others like you, trapped in darkness, believing they're alone. You're going to tell them they're not. You're going to show them there's a way out. Not because you're special. Because I am. But I don't know how, I whispered. I'm nobody. I have nothing. I can barely speak English properly. How am I supposed to? Watch me work. 3 weeks later, a journalist contacted the refugee center. She'd seen the videos from my wedding. She'd been investigating underground Christian networks in Muslim-majority countries. She wanted to interview me, write my story, publish it internationally. At first, I refused. The thought of putting myself out there, of making myself even more of a target, terrified me. But the coordinator, a kind woman named Rebecca, sat with me and said something I'll never forget. Amira, Satan wants you silent. He wants you hiding. He wants your testimony buried where it can't hurt his kingdom. Every time you speak, every time you share what Jesus did for you, you're driving a sword into the enemy's heart. So the question is, whose voice are you going to listen to? Fear's? Or Jesus's? I thought about that for a long time. Then I agreed to the interview. The article was published 2 months later in an international magazine. They changed some details to protect people, used a pseudonym for my location, blurred my face in photos. But the core story was there. The forced marriage. The murders. The Bible I'd found. Jesus appearing. The miracle at the wedding. The escape. Within days, it went viral. Millions of people read it. Shared it. Commented. Some believed. Some didn't. Some sent death threats. Some sent messages saying, "Your story saved my life." I was about to kill myself. But reading what Jesus did for you, I asked him into my heart. And that's when I understood. Jesus hadn't just saved me from Khalid. He'd saved me for this. To be a voice. A witness. A living testimony that he is real, he is powerful, and he loves the broken, the enslaved, the desperate, especially those trapped in Islam who've been taught that Allah is unreachable and love is conditional. A year after arriving in Turkey, I was granted asylum in the United States. I remember stepping off the plane in New York, walking through the airport with Rebecca beside me. She'd become like a mother to me, and just stopping. Standing there in the middle of the terminal, crying. "What's wrong?" Rebecca asked, concerned. "Nothing's wrong," I said, laughing through tears. "Everything's right. I'm free. Really, truly free. I can say Jesus' name out loud and no one will arrest me. I can carry a Bible in public. I can go to church. I can live." She hugged me tight. "Yes, you can. Now go live for him, daughter. Make your suffering count." And that's what I've been doing ever since. I live in a small apartment now. Nothing fancy, certainly not the marble floors and silk abayas of my old life. I work part-time at a Christian bookstore, and I'm learning, slowly, painfully, how to be a normal person.